Talk Show.
Recorded live.
Hello, and welcome to the Castle Dracula Horror Movie Podcast. On this podcast, we talk about horror movies, vampire movies, and all-around awesomeness. And this week, we talk about the 2009 horror film House of the Devil, directed by Ty West, as we return for yet another season of the Castle Dracula Podcast, or as we're calling it now, the Castle Dracula Horror Movie Podcast. And I am seriously excited to be back. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of the Alex Van Helsing adventure Triumph of Death, and hardback and ebook from HarperCollins. With me are Drew Edwards, the creator of the long-running horror webcomic Halloween Man, which you can find at HalloweenMan.com. Say hello, Drew.
Hello.
Hello. You even got some, bubbliness in there. Tony Salvaggio, who I have been working with extremely hard this week. He's the co-creator of the Victorian mech comic Clockworks, coming this spring from Humanoids, and we have been knocking that script out. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And, he's also lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars, bassist for the Japanese rock band Picari Shred, so I don't know when he sleeps. And
not much.
and color commentary once and forever from attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello, Miss Julia.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. The House of the Devil. This one is by request from one of our listeners who left excellent comments on iTunes. So if you leave us some comments or even just shout at us, we will very likely record a review of a request. I will definitely make that try to happen. I will try to make that happen. Things. Oh, well, yeah, as long as it's something that Julia can bear to watch. The rest of us will watch
No,
I
said as long as you shout nice things.
Oh, absolutely.
Shout insults.
Yes. if you insult us, I don't know if we'll
you stupid idiots,
review your
you got to
movie.
review this. No, we're not going to do that.
All right. House of the Devil is a 2009 horror film written, directed, and edited by Ty West, starring Jocelyn Donahue, Tom Noonan, and Mary Warrenoff. It combines elements of both the slasher and film and haunted house subgenres while using the quote-unquote satanic panic of the 1980s as a central plot element. The film is an homage to horror films of the late 70s and very early 80s, recreating the style of films of that era using filming techniques and similar technology to what was used then. So saith Wikipedia. All right. We're going to get into what happens in this movie. It's actually a fairly simple movie with a lot of goodness in it. I want to go first impressions. I want to do it this way. Let's go Tony, Julia, Drew, and Jason. So queuing it up. Tony, first impressions, House of the Devil.
I really like this movie. I think it does everything it's supposed to do extremely well. I missed it. I can't remember if it was Fantastic Fest that I actually just missed it or if I missed it the year before. But when I finally got to see it on video, I was really bummed that I didn't get to see it in the Fantastic Fest crowd. And seeing it again, it still holds up. I think it's pretty awesome. It does a lot of really good things really well. So it's just a solid horror movie.
That's completely positive. All right, Julia, first impressions. What are we going to talk about when we talk about The House of the Devil?
Well, it's definitely very cheesy. I got to say, I kept forgetting that it was not actually filmed in the 80s. So they did achieve excellently, as Tony said, what they set out to achieve. And what they set out to achieve was to film a horror movie that looks like it was actually made in the 80s, which it seems like it was. They even promoted it by releasing it in VHS in a clamshell. But I guess I've become, you guys have made me so accustomed now to watching horror movies that I've become sort of a little bit numb to them, and so it really didn't even scare me. I was not that scared. There was a couple of little moments, but I wasn't really that scared by it. So I don't know what that means about me. That's kind of disturbing. But it was interesting. There were some things that kind of bugged me, but we'll talk about that as we go through. But definitely, I completely forgot that it was not really in the 80s. So that's
wonderful.
Was well done.
That's great. So it's a good effect. Okay, Drew, I'm dying to know first impressions. What did you think?
Okay, first off, I want to say before I get neck deep into this, you were not afraid of this movie, Julia, but this movie scares the bejeebus out of me. I've seen this movie twice. I saw it the first time when it was first released. I saw it with my wife, and we were clinging to each other Scooby and Shaggy style the whole time. The second time, my wife is out on tour with her band this weekend. So I was all alone. I have had a cold since Wednesday, so I was running a high fever. And I popped this into the DVD player alone in my apartment. And I do not think I have ever had a more fearful horror movie viewing experience. Like, every little noise in the house suddenly started taking on this amazing significance. What was that? I am man enough to admit that this movie scares the hell out of me. Well done, Ty West. That is not saying I have sit through arguably some of the most twisted movies of all time and not even flinched. So hats off to you, sir. And I was holding back on this comment until we actually got on the air. Rob Zombie, take note. This is how you recreate a vintage horror film. This movie looks almost exactly like how I remember horror movies from when I was a kid looking.
For sure.
It feels like a horror movie from when I was a kid looking. Like, if this had been playing at the drive-in theater in Graham, Texas, it would not have looked out of place on a double bill with Friday the 13th Part 3D.
That's right. There's not a thing here that doesn't feel like it would have been done then, or even a stylistic choice. There's not a hair out of place stylistically for this thing.
Just slightly.
I'm interrupting. I'm stepping
stock.
on your first impression.
Slightly better film stock, perhaps, than what would have been
yeah,
the same budget.
That is maybe it.
And that's fine, because we often see prints that are well worn, you know.
I've seen big budget movies trying to look like a certain time period and not achieve it as well as this movie.
No, that's true.
You know,
well, let's get into that actually in the discussion, because I do want to talk about this illusion of creating another time, because I can think of another couple of examples, and this is a really funny trick. I mean, even down to, like, you know, SNL has some sort of Saturday Night Live has some short tricks they do to try to create the look of an older film, where they have, like, the filter that they run that just creates crackling, you know, sort of grain effects on video. But this is beautiful, and one reason why we'll get into. But anyway, okay, so I guess that leaves me, right? Okay, so thank you, Drew, and I'm very sorry. Although the funny thing is, you telling your story of watching this movie all by yourself, it reminds me of that episode of Happy Days, you know, when the Fonz has the fever and he's, like, at home and he's on the couch and he starts watching the scary.
Did you just call me the Fonz?
Yes, I related you to the Fonz. Yes.
You know what's funny? I had the same impression actually back in the day of Evil Dead 2, and then I watched it with people, though, and they were like, that's not scary, that's funny. And in retrospect, it is. But when I first watched it, I watched it at my grandfather's house out in the country. There's, like, a train that's in the distance, and, like, it settles at night. And, man, Evil Dead 2 was so scary. And then I watched it with my girlfriend, and she was like, what? Why were you scared of that? It's like, you don't understand. It was scary.
Sometimes it's all about the mood.
Yeah,
sometimes it doesn't even matter.
It's much more of a comedy, but I had the same impression. This is scarier than that, though. By leaps and bounds.
It is. This is. I think this maybe is scarier than Evil Dead 2. Although Evil Dead 2 is a work of genius, and I love it.
Absolutely.
Okay, my first impressions. I don't think I've enjoyed any movie we've watched more in recent months than this film. I really loved watching The House of the Devil. I'm so thankful to Elizabeth Luisi who recommended it. I can't believe I didn't watch it when it came out. Cannot believe it. I mean, I think I've been so turned off recently to a lot of you know, new horror garbage that I want to betray my own opinion of something. But I mean, you know, I just figured this would be a torture porn or something. You know, I kind of just figured this would be another thing. Oh, well, somebody's going to get their head in a vice grip or whatever. But it wasn't that at all. This is like an amazing piece of work. And I really wish, I have this terrible fear that only us four are going to be, the typical audience for this movie, and that it might not find the people that it's looking for. But boy, is it gorgeous.
This seems like it's already becoming a cult film.
I hope
it did
so.
Pretty well.
I really do hope so. I have no idea how it did. So that's good to know. I mean, I went out of my way. I didn't even look up spoilers online. I didn't even want to know like what happened in it or anything. I had zero idea. So truly, I was really, really impressed, and I loved it. And even the fact that, to be honest with you, I wasn't even all that scared. But I couldn't look away for a moment. It could have gone on for another half hour. I would have been perfectly happy. The ending, even though the ending to me feels a little bit abrupt, I still don't care. I'm highly forgiving of this because I think.
But the abrupt ending is all part of the style, because I mean they're kind of riffing a little on John Carpenter, who is like the king of the abrupt ending.
Right, that's absolutely right. So so let's get into it. The first thing that we want to discuss, the movie spends like the first 10 or 20 minutes just sort of establishing the world that we are in. And so this is an opportunity for us. I want to talk a little bit about the world that our character Samantha lives in and the way the movie presents the world that she lives in. And very briefly, we find Samantha, the first section of this movie, we find Samantha, the main character, is checking out a new apartment. She's ready to get out of her dorm because she's got a rude and slutty roommate who gets on her nerves because Samantha's kind of a germaphobe. And she's found this awesome apartment in a little house, and she's got to come up with the money to pay for the apartment. That establishes the problem. But can somebody talk about how awesome the world of this movie is? Before I do.
It feels like you could do the same setup, and it could be a drama from that time period, and not a horror movie, and it wouldn't feel out of place. This could totally turn into the struggle of a young woman at college kind of thing.
Yes, it could have been
a comedy. It could also easily be like a wacky college comedy from that time period. I mean, you have the friend the blonde friend who's kind of the PJ Souls stand-in, and she could work in either a comedy or a horror film, and it's funny. You have there's two actresses that they look like that one of them looks the blonde PJ Souls type actually kind of looks more like Christy Swanson from like the early 90s, and
that's true. We actually were thinking she looked like Elizabeth Shue.
She bears a lot of resemblance to Elizabeth Shue.
Christy Swanson and Elizabeth Shue actually kind of look like each other, so I think that's fair. But the main girl kind of looks like what is her name? It is escaping me. The woman that played Margot Kidder. She kind of looks like a young Margot Kidder to me. So she's
like an extremely young, very pretty Margot Kidder. That's true. She's skinny as all heck. I mean, and she kind of reminds you of some of these sort of extremely, these bony actresses from the late 70s and early 80s, like Kristen McNichol
Jamie Lee Curtis.
And stuff like that. Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis, absolutely. And what I really just fell in love with at the beginning, because the movie spends a lot of time just with her wandering around, putting up flyers, pulling down flyers. She wants to find a job. She's got all this stuff going on. She's walking around a college campus, and they're going to the pizza place. And in it's being presented, the movie's filmed, it's in theory, I guess, the end of the spring semester, so it's the start of the summer, but you wouldn't know it because everybody's wearing these coats. They got.
What makes you think it's the end of the spring semester?
Well, she's moving out of the dorm, so there's some reason why.
No, she's moving out of the dorm because her roommate is a total disaster and is always sleeping with her boyfriend. She just wants out of there.
it's just sometime in the fall, and she's literally leaving early. That's interesting. Okay, all right. Wow, I did not, but that makes total sense because she's okay. So it's gray, but what's really amazing is it's grainy. Okay, this movie is filmed literally. Ty West literally filmed the movie on 16 millimeter practical film. So it looks like a movie filmed in 1979. It could be Caddyshack or any one of those, Cheerleader's Revenge, any one of those movies that was filmed then, to pick a great movie and a less great one. And I just couldn't take my eyes off of the wonderful texture of this film. And I kept wondering, Tony, if you and I were making a picture and we were using a video camera, a digital video camera, is it possible to use a filter of some kind or another to make it look like this? Can it be done?
It would be really hard.
Why is that?
In my opinion.
But what's going on to create that level of, there's a kind of a thickness to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things when people talk about, and not to be the whole kind of like, oh, vinyl's the best, film is best, whatever. I do feel like film has a look. If you like that look, you get that with film. Like that's just the way it is. And the attempts to reproduce that are pretty lackluster, I think, in a lot of ways. I just like another thing people do is use the static filter, like in After Effects, to make static on a TV.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
unless I took screenshots and showed you, I can always tell. Part of it's because I'm an animator and I'm trained to look for that kind of crap. And if you never notice it, that's awesome because it bugs the crap out of me. But there's a thing that the way that static is generated is different than if you have static on an actual CRT. And well, now we don't even have that anymore. All we get's a blue screen. Like we have digital now.
That's right.
You'd have to hook up your TV and get static. You know what I mean? In fact, I wish somebody would maybe do that, where just
create a channel that's just the old-fashioned static.
No, or like somebody would just digitize like 80 hours worth of static, so you'd never have the same piece of static, which just sounds ridiculous and probably stupid. But if you know where I'm coming from, you'll know. And that's really geeky, but that's just the way it is. And I think the same thing with film. Like, if you apply a filter, there's still a thing that digital does. And people have done it really well. There's a lot of stuff that's really close. I mean, Jason, you and I were fooled by that one thing at the Benamathon that time.
Well, what was that called? Okay, so there was a picture that pretended to be a lost black and white 50s movie.
And I think I just wanted to believe so badly that in retrospect I saw it and I was like, oh man, that was how.
And this wasn't a Larry Blame. So another guy doing those, I was going to say, is Larry Blameyer, who made The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, and he's making these broad comedies that get a lot of laughs off of your awareness of old movies, and he's really good at that. And he's done ones that look like 60s American International pictures. He's done ones that look like cheap late 40s and early 50s adventure pictures. And he's doing beautiful work. This is something else, though. I mean, this is just really the illusion in this movie is so perfect.
This isn't played for laughs either. I mean, like even the like the Grindhouse movies that Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez do. They're it's clear that they love what they're making fun of, but they're still like a parodic.
Yes.
Thing
I like
there.
that word. I mean, you're right. I mean, when you look at Grindhouse, that's a very good example because the Tarantino piece of Grindhouse had all that graininess in it, and that was Planet Terror. It was even worse. He had great big, like hairs would show up on the screen and just all kinds of things. This feels like a pretty well done 1980s movie. There's the moment that I think just makes me cheer is early on after she hangs up a payphone, she walks across the street. Oh, no, it's after talking to Dee Wallace, and she walks across the street, and the film freezes and gives us the opening titles, and it's in this big, wonderful yellow font across the screen, and it literally looks like like a million movies like Let's Scare Jessica to Death or any of those. I just believed it. And by the way, all the other little things like her hair. I mean, the.
Oh yeah, the hair was awesome.
Really? Oh.
And the hair for both of us, for her and her friend. I mean, the friend had those wonderful wings. It's so great.
Yeah, and she has that blue and white shirt, and at the pizza place they're eating at. They've got the payphones, and the girl dials the payphone with her knuckle, which I know she's a germaphone, but.
Somebody has pointed out on IMDb that she put in a quarter, and at the time it wouldn't have been a quarter, it would have been a dime. I love that if you look at the trivia for stuff like this, there's somebody who has sat there and looked at every single detail and gone, okay, this is anachronistic, and the license plates are wrong, the faucets are wrong, there's a car alarm, there wouldn't have been a car alarm. It cracks me up, but you have to be really kind of obsessive to notice this.
Julia, that's your old car, isn't it? I mean, the Mercedes that.
Not my old car. Not my old car. My parents had a car like that.
I distinctly remember being driven around by you in a car just like this.
Well, because I didn't have my own car, so I borrowed my mom's and left her without a car. Poor thing.
Right.
Poor thing. But our car didn't look exactly like that, which makes me think that they didn't say this in the IMDb, but I'm wondering if. Well, I guess she could have had an older car because that didn't look like the model that we had in that year.
What year is this movie? So let's try.
1983 in Connecticut is what it said in the IMDb.
I wonder, do they come to the conclusion of 83 because the Fix song?
Because of the music, because of the Fix.
And so, are we certain? This is a stupid question, so forgive me, but I've asked questions like this all the time. Are we certain that she is listening to the same song that we are? I mean, in other words...
I'm pretty sure that's the idea.
Oh, I lost Drew. Hang on. Drew, are you back?
I am back.
Good. Yes, okay. I'm so sorry. I'll pay more attention to see if I see you waving. Okay, so... Yeah, and we were just trying to determine, when
what was the question? We were trying to establish the year?
Yeah,
it was
the year.
1983.
Well, the reason we're thinking...
That's when that song came out.
Yeah, but that's the only thing that would tell me that, because otherwise, looking at the hair, we've watched a lot of 81, 82 movies. Looking at the hair, looking at everything, I'd pull this at 81 or 82, maybe even 80. And then, her Walkman is a very early Walkman. I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean,
I think the cutoff point I would say with this movie, it's no later than 1985, because that's when we start to get into more the extreme 80s look with the bigger hair and the shoulder pad.
It can't be earlier than 93 if in fact she is listening to that song. 83. It can't be earlier than 83 because if she's listening to the song, then it wouldn't have come out yet before 83.
Again, unless the song is wrong. I mean, unless she's not listening to the same song.
Why would it be? And the song, by the way, for those who don't remember, is One Thing Leads to Another by the Fix.
Right. Yeah. So no, absolutely right. You're right. I'm going extra textual. If I'm going to assume that there's music, that the music that's being played that we're hearing is not the music that she's dancing to, you're right.
Maybe it's just a generic maybe it's just a genetic early 80s universe, if we're going to think like that, where all early 80s things exist simultaneously.
Maybe it's 2012 and it's it's an 80s-ish universe. What a groovy idea! Somehow time just never moved forward except for the inflation occurred.
Pleasantville, how Pleasantville, you can go to the one place.
Yes, exactly. Only it's an 80s horror film.
That's right. Oh man, I would so go to that place. I mean, what
enjoy.
Really, you would go? You would go there? That seems like that would be very bad for your safety.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there.
Yeah, enjoy that, Jason.
But remember, Drew, that this is the guy who goes, everywhere he goes, he beckons ghosts to come and see him and speak with him. So, it doesn't surprise me.
I was just thinking about, other great films of this period, like House and Sorority Row, with all those tunnels under the house. And
Jason, the Ghostbusters are a few years away from this film. You will not be safe. You should be afraid of a ghost.
There's another early 80s.
Too, Jason. But I think it would end badly for us, too. As sidekicks and friends usually get the worst of it.
Especially, I mean, gosh. The poor friend is the first one to go.
Oh no!
And self-referential horror films where you can save yourself by knowing the rules are at least a decade away.
You're right. So you're saying if you could suggest some kind of a world where you could jump through little tunnels and wind up in different movie universes, this is not the movie you would wind up in. That's
hell no! This movie scares the hell out of me. And we have just described the plot of Waxwork 2.
Right.
Exactly.
Realized.
Yes.
I have to see that movie. Okay, I still have not seen Waxwork 2. Okay. I saw Waxwork 1, which taught me all about steak tartare. Okay. So Samantha gets this gig. She needs $400 or whatever it is, $300 or $400 for this. It's either she's renting this house or she's just going to rent an apartment in the house. It's unclear, but it doesn't even matter. I think it's just an apartment in the house, and so she just needs a little bit of money for that, but she doesn't have any money. And long story short, she winds up agreeing to go out that very night to the home of a smooth-talking guy. Oh,
but you forgot to mention the statistics at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, yes, I should mention this. So we've been primed for what kind of bad stuff might go down, because the movie begins with a thoroughly insane statistic. It's at something like, if I recall correctly,
70%,
something like... What is it?
70% of people, so it's like something like 70% of people don't believe that satanic, what was it? I know the number was
satanic ritual abuse.
Right, and then 30% believe that the evidence is covered up, which makes 100%, except for that it makes no sense at all. I assume they're saying 30% of the people who believe in it believe that it's covered up, but which I guess would be, I don't know, what's 30% of 7? It's 0.21%. I think they're saying that 0.21% of people believe that the evidence of Satanism is covered up.
Where are you getting 0.21? 30% of 70 is 21, not 0.21. 21%. Is that what you're saying? Whatever.
Yeah, 0.21. Yes.
The point being is people in the 80s are afraid of the devil.
Also, they can't use statistics. That was just the most maddening thing. I looked at that. We go, wait a minute, that doesn't add up to anything. That's crazy. But I was like, the other. That's when I knew I was in for something great, because I was like, that's the craziest bit of statistics right there, and it would only be better if it were read aloud by John Larroquette. I mean, because it just makes no sense, and you're in for it. Anyway, she winds up saying, yes, I will come out and be a babysitter to Tom Noonan. He says, but I need you tonight. And he sounds sort of creepy, but extraordinarily polite already. And so her rich best friend, the beautiful feather-haired Megan, drives her out there in a, nice Volvo sedan, and then go out to a farmhouse way the heck out at the end of an old dark road on the night when everybody's very excited about a big lunar eclipse coming up. Yeah. So we meet Tom Noonan. Tom Noonan is the gentleman of the house who has hired her to be a babysitter. And let me tell you what I thought. The moment he opened the door, he's tall and he has a beard and he's extremely polite.
But you do realize that this is Frankenstein from Monster Squad.
Oh yes, and I was also thinking this is the guy from Manhunter. This is the Tooth Fairy from Manhunter. But I'm not kidding. The moment I saw him, I said, he really reminds me of the guy from Eating Raoul, Paul Bartel. I mean, I was like, if this was being filmed in the actual time, Paul Bartel would be playing this role. Paul Bartel's dead now, right? And so, what to my wondering eyes does appear? But a few minutes later, Mary Woronoff, is it Mary? Anyway, it's Miss Woronoff. Mary Woronoff, who was with Paul Bartel in all those movies. In other words, the woman who acted regularly with the guy that I thought Tom Noonan should have been is actually in this movie, which just shows like where this director's head is at, that he is nailing these details so much that if you've watched a lot of 80s movies, you're already filling in the blanks, and he's really like literally a couple of steps ahead of you. It's astonishing. I mean, when she shows up, I was my God.
I have to say, the way he has outfitted them down to their behavior, you know, it's not an 80s reference, but they have a very Charles Addams kind of feel to them.
There's definitely that. Yes. It also kind of reminded me a lot.
Who is Charles Addams, for those of us who don't know?
Charles Addams is the cartoonist who created the Addams Family for the New Yorker. But he was very famous for his sort of morbidly funny cartoons and the characters therein. And Tom Noonan actually looks a lot like the original version of Lurch, which had a beard. He
does look a lot like Lurch. And you know, I think you're right about that. Once they introduce this sort of very sort of weirdly funny element with them, the movie kind of skitters on its rails a little bit, because you kind of have to decide, all right, so what kind of 80s movie are we hearkening to? Because there were movies like
I don't think it does, though, because he I mean, it's funny, but it's still like, you know, you're never, you know, they're Addams Family-esque, but they don't feel safe like the Addams Family.
Well,
you know,
right.
It's
like a black,
you know, he has that. Yeah, he has that line like, "Are you an astronomer?" No, not exactly. But he never offers up the information of what he does.
Yes.
You know, and if it was anything other than a horror film, those two girls would have been out of there, because normal people don't behave in that way. Right. Nobody in their right mind would stay in that house and work that job, especially after it comes to be realized that he is lying to her.
Well, now that's interesting. Okay, so we get to that scene right away, and I really like this. I thought, because the director has to pull off this thing where this girl, even in a horror movie, this girl should have more sense than stay there. Except for that, he's waving all kinds of money at her, and she really needs the money. And he seems kind of innocent. He seems kind of just on his last rope, you know, and so you sort of can see how she would believe him.
And it's also pretty awesome, because he's this Satanist, and he's like, damn it, we do not have a girl for this. Like, we thought we'd planned out this whole ritual. There's an eclipse coming. All this is going on, and the babysitter pulled out. Where are we going to find a sacrifice at this late hour? And it's like,
my God!
So
yeah, you're right.
Like, we just, you know what? Fine, $400. Which, you know, of
but
course,
you know what? I mean, it's not like he's not going to get the money back once he kills the woman.
But it's still one of those things where he's like, whatever it takes, like, I'll pull out this cash, which is kind of crazy that he has this $400 hanging out. You know, everybody bats an eye at that. But
maybe he went and got it at the Pulse machine or whatever was around in '83. I guess it was just the bank. He had to go to the bank.
Let me tell you, in the 80s, it's only slightly more believable that he would have the money, because in the 80s, Friday night, you know, for any of our listeners who are a lot younger than I am, on a Friday night, you needed to get your money, because otherwise you didn't have any money on Monday. So if you wanted to do anything on the weekend, like go to a movie or go out to a restaurant or whatever, you needed to go by the bank and get cash.
Yeah, because there weren't cash, there weren't any ATMs. And
that's right. I didn't have any.
And not everybody took credit cards.
Well, is that money his, though?
Oh, who knows? He probably took it from the people who own that. This house may not even be theirs. It's unclear.
No, the house is not theirs.
No, the house is not theirs.
No, it ends up definitely not being theirs.
Oh, right, because of all those photographs. I knew that.
No,
right.
It's their car and the dead family that used to be there, who is now murdered in a room.
But I really thought that the dead family, and we're jumping ahead, but I really thought the dead family at the very least had been dragged there. But you're right, it's their house.
No,
it's their house.
It's their photos and their car.
No, that's right. And all the photos have been stuffed into the closet. So, but my point is, from Samantha's perspective, when she's standing there, he seems so nervous and put upon and sad that you can kind of see her agreeing to stay, at least as far as the movie just needs her to stay regardless. She is suffering under the forces of, the gravitational pull of the plot. But even so, you can kind of see it because stupid people do crap like this all the time and wind up dead. So you can see that she's on her way to being a statistic already. Megan knows that very well. Megan's like, well, I'm out of here. These people are weird. They lied to you. Adios. I'll pick you up.
Have we said what they lied about?
Yeah. So let's establish that. They said, hey, come out here and be a babysitter. We need a babysitter. We're going to go out. She shows up. She shows up. He goes, yeah, we're going to go out and look at the eclipse. But it's not really so much babysitting as looking after my elderly mother, which is not shocking, except for that it's a weird lie. Samantha's thrown off by the fact that it's a weird lie, and she's like, "I'm not a nurse, I can babysit, but And he goes, "Oh no, it's nothing like. It's not going to be that bad. She'll be asleep. Yeah, 4 hours. You just got to stick around, and don't go upstairs. She likes her privacy. Bye." And that's what it's like. And he does have to, it's not quite that. He has to ply her with lots of money because she's going to take off.
And so for $400, she can't even be bothered to follow the one instruction she was given, which was don't go upstairs.
Right. Okay, so yes.
Horror movie.
Let us so.
Yeah, I was totally, Tony, doing that whole, the movie theater thing where you're like, what are you doing? Why are you going upstairs?
Yeah. All you had to do was stay downstairs.
Well, especially, and this is also jumping in, but especially when we actually see what Mother is really like.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. So let's go ahead and jump ahead because all that really happens that we're missing is Megan takes off, and we'll skip for a second what's happened to her. So
Megan being the BFF.
Samantha remains behind, and she doesn't turn on the TV and watch it. Instead, she starts, I guess, like any 20-year-old, exploring the house.
What did I keep saying, Jason, throughout the whole movie? That you were like, you just really hung up on this. I kept going, why aren't you watching TV? Just go watch TV.
Oh, yeah.
You were going to watch TV.
That's
go watch
right.
TV.
You said you were going to watch TV. Now, she does turn it on. She doesn't switch the channel, but she turns it on, and they're talking about the eclipse, and they're going to play literally Night of the Living Dead. And she's like, I don't want to watch Night of the Living Dead. So she doesn't flip around. I mean, hell, there's only 3 stations anyway, so, I don't know why she would bother. And I mean, unless you add UHF, and then you might have some more.
Well, she does get to do an impromptu dance sequence.
Yes, this is
pool.
so great. I love the impromptu dance sequence. Love it. She, and her dances are all lame and very 80s-ish, and that's nice. She's dancing to the fix and having a good time dancing around the house. And it's when she accidentally knocks over a lamp, or a vase, actually, that she, moves some stuff out of the way, opens a closet, and discovers photographs that indicate that the house does not belong to Tom Noonan. That's what happens right there. All of a sudden, she's like, this doesn't make sense. I see a picture of the Volvo outside, but this family is there. And so now, based on only that, I mean, there could, there's no blood anywhere or anything, at least not that she can see. Based only on that, she starts to get freaked out. And the movie moves pretty quickly. In fact, I know that I should move us along a little bit. What we know more than she knows, because we know 2 things. We know, one, that there was a guy watching the road, and he killed Megan, which is sad. Which is sad, because Megan pulled over at the cemetery. I guess to light her cigarette.
Well,
and,
I think she was freaked out. I think she's also deciding, like, do I go back and rescue her from this crazy family?
Right.
Or do I go home? Like, well, if I go home, I got to wait for her to come pick her up anyway.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there debating and decides to light a cigarette, and then terrible things happen. Terrible things.
Yeah, and that is a shock.
She gets shot in the
great
face
horror
by
movie
hipster
moment.
douchebag.
Yes.
She gets shot in the face by hipster douchebag Pugsley.
He actually, to be honest, his outfit seemed a little anachronistic to me, but I guess not. I mean, I think his sort of non-fashion, the dirty blue jeans and the
it's only
flannel.
anachronistic because we live now in a land where we can watch Portlandia.
Yes.
Watch this same, or in parts of Austin and go,
Portlandia nothing, man. You and I could walk down to downtown Austin tonight and see 50 guys dressed just like that.
That's true.
Right.
Who have picked up the actual clothes from the 80s.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
If they're worth their weight in salt, they've gone to pick just the right ensemble of 80s things.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And paid a high price for it to look like they paid nothing for something, which is awesome.
To wear it ironically.
Yeah.
We didn't mention, by the way, that Samantha wears this pair of jeans that comes all the way up to like her navel. I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're I mean, I don't know. It was kind of neat. It was really cool to me how unironically she wore these extremely high-waisted jeans. Now, this is just how these people dress.
She has this frosted blue eyeshadow, which is totally 80s, too.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, all of it is done. I mean, yes, there's, stuff that doesn't fit, but you could drive yourself mad worrying about all of that. And
she drives a Volvo that's boxy but good.
Yes.
Right.
That's a callback to funny people. I like that. It's a very funny movie that nobody remembers. Actually, the only funny parts were those posters.
Crazy People?
Was it Crazy People? Yeah.
I thought that was from like Arthur or something.
No, it was Dudley Moore.
No, it's another Dudley Moore movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just remember seeing the movie.
They did all these yeah. I remember some of them were just hilarious and extremely raunchy and wonderful. Okay, so we should fast forward so that we're not walking our way through this movie for years. What ends up occurring is she gets extremely freaked out, but ultimately, even as she explores, she doesn't find much more evidence, and then she falls asleep because she eats the pizza that she ordered, and it's drugged.
Right.
And when she wakes up,
intercepted by the same guy who shot her friend.
Oh, I even think the phone call was intercepted. She called over the pizza.
No, it wasn't intercepted. They said we have a phone number on the fridge for you of of a pizza place in the area. So obviously the phone number goes straight to that guy. Where he is, that he's got a phone, given that we don't have cell phones, I guess it must be a payphone number.
Yeah, well, they're able to call back. They dial back to the payphone, which actually may or may not be supernatural. But they never, I mean, it could happen, but,
Or maybe they had Star 69 or whatever that was.
You're right. They may have some Satan powers that enable them to know where a call is coming from, because I don't know how else you would do it in 1983. Because
they didn't have Star 69 back then?
Yeah, I mean,
Star 16...
Because she's freaked out that they're able to just call back. They're like, hey, you just called us. She's like,
yeah.
So, I mean, it could go either way. They have a plausible explanation, which is true. But there's also, the fact that it may just be that they're full of Satan.
Yeah, they have the power of Satan compels them to know how to do neat tricks with the telephone. Let me tell you, the power of Satan abandons these poor people pretty quickly, though, because she wakes up in the same pentagram where they have slaughtered the family that they stole this house from, because apparently it's all a big plan where it's the eclipse.
It's not, though. She's in the basement.
Yeah, it's not the same
it's in the basement?
They're in a room with a much more elaborate. Theirs has like.
Oh, because there are like arches and stuff. Yes, that's right.
and they evidently were the precursor to kind of maybe they were the precursor to really, really bring about the eclipse in the way that they need to bring the eclipse about.
Right. But the family's on a giant pentagram.
They were trying to. The thing that the impression that I get is they're trying to impregnate her with the Antichrist. That is
absolutely
right.
At least the gist.
I think that's right.
So if we're going to fast forward, let's go ahead and fast forward to the fact that now she's tied up and they start painting on. Well, first of all, the mother shows up, which we hadn't seen before, and she's this monstrous kind of creature. And I'm curious what you guys think about that. But
that has me wondering: are any of them fully human? because like she's
I'm not
the
positive
same.
she's their mother. Or
So
a
Samantha wakes
mother.
up and she's in the pentagram. She's tied up, and there's now the four people there. There's Tom Noonan in a big satanic robe. There's Mary Warrenoff in a big satanic robe. There's the dude from in the flannel
Beard.
now in a big
Son.
satanic robe.
He's their son. It's the mother, the father, and the son.
Sure,
And
which he
then
says
the
we have a
mother-
grown son. And there's Grandma, who has a weird apple core kind of face that is really sort of smooth and strange and glassy-eyed. And she's a strange creature. I mean, just an odd, demonic-looking woman. And she's the one who does the really ritualistic stuff. Because instead of just stabbing Samantha, and by the way, this whole thing is harrowing. I mean, this was really scary. When Samantha's tied up and they're around her, you are really afraid for her. I was, anyway. And all of a sudden, at this point, the illusion of I'm enjoying this sort of straight skit on the 80s, all that went away, and I was really afraid for this girl. And the grandma is the one who's going to do the crazy Satan magic. She has a big old cow skull, and she gets some blood, and she makes...
Get some blood from her own wrist.
From her own wrist. She cuts her wrist, and she makes Samantha drink from it, and it's really disgusting. I mean, she pours the blood through the skull, and it dribbles onto Samantha's face. And, this is all so horrible because it plays on all these fears of taking things into your mouth and about being poisoned and about foreign bodies and all that stuff. And they also smear, the mom smears a pentagram in black blood on Samantha's belly. So,
and that's the extreme extent, because it's kind of reminiscent of the Rosemary's Baby, rape scene.
Absolutely.
But in this case, there's no physical rape, except the only violation is the blood in her mouth. And so, to me, then, skipping forward to the end, when we find out that she's with child, I'm like, well, how the heck is that supposed to have happened? And Jason, well, I don't know. You can tell what your theory is that if it's not, because I mean, I don't know what the rest of it may be not so realistic, but I don't know of any kind of being that impregnates through blood in your mouth. I mean,
well, I do in tapeworms, and also the Ridley Scott alien would do just fine going through your mouth. In fact, it does. It's how it does it. So it's possible that. But you know what? Let's skip to the pregnancy. Let's talk about the pregnancy at the end. I just want to mention this whole sequence here. We now trip off a sequence that lasts for about 8 minutes or so, because this is a tight little movie. We trip off this thing where all of a sudden everything that can go wrong for the Satanist all of a sudden goes wrong. Samantha suddenly develops the powers of James Bond. She breaks free of her bonds. She starts slicing and dicing people left and right. She gets shot in the shoulder. She's still doing fine. She kills nearly everyone.
Well, I think she's finally it's like the horror movie protagonist you wish you had seen in many, many others, right?
Yes.
I mean, because the thing is, she also, the reason that she gets away at all is because they planned on her eating the whole pizza, or at least half of it, or whatever. She tastes, she obviously tastes something that's wrong with it, throws that away, and is like, man, this pizza's terrible, right?
Yes.
It could be even cold, because who knows how long he's been waiting with that pizza, right?
That's right.
And so she throws it away. They obviously didn't check the pizza, and so it's, it surprises them as well that she actually wakes up for the ritual. I think the mom is fine with her waking up because it's just that much more terrible and awful, and she's cool with that, as terrible Satan monsters are wont to do. But the rest of them are probably not as happy with her actually not being full of sleeping pills.
She's not docile, so she stabs Tom Newman, and she stabs Mary Warrenoff in the back of the head, who is as dumb as a box of satanic rocks, because she turns around to pray to Satan for help, giving Samantha time to stab her.
She gets that one really great scene though when she kills the son.
Yeah.
And Mary Warnoff actually looks very distraught there for a moment. Like for a moment, you can almost believe that is actually her kid.
Yeah,
definitely
because
is.
Up until that point, I wasn't 100% sure if that was her child or if that was some dude that they just added into the cult because they liked his beard or whatever.
I felt like he's Willie from Dark Shadows, right? He's just this guy who gets to do stuff.
She's totally ruined the awesome National Lampoon's Satanic Vacation they were going to have once this eclipse happened.
It is weird, you got to think, like, what the hell did Mary and Tom think was going to happen here? Because they've been like, what did they do? Well, I mean,
my guess here, if I had to guess, is that they're longtime Satanists, probably high up there. They've been taking care of Mother, whatever she is. If she's their mother, she could just be, she might be
just a
the previous one who got impregnated, and she's.
I think that's a possibility. Yeah.
But they obviously, like, this eclipse at this time, which they're making a big deal of, is obviously extremely significant. So when things start to go south for them, they don't get the sacrifice they wanted. They're worried. Then, you know what? Looks like everything's going to be cool. It's going as planned. We've resurrected this. We're bringing this back around. We don't have to tell our other satanic friends that we totally botched the job, and it's going to be all good. And that doesn't happen, So I think they, it's important that this, whatever this is, happens, in the same way that in Rosemary's Baby they have to, like, here's our time frame. Hey, it's awesome. This new couple moved in. Phew, we can go. We can, we got it all squared away now.
Yeah.
So I think that's basically what's going on.
So when they everything starts to go wrong with Samantha, Tom Noonan is the only one to survive, but he chases her into the cemetery, and she's starting to get flashes of weird stuff because she drank the Satan juice.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, doesn't matter if you kill me.
She's also got, like, all the weird veins and stuff. Like, something's going on in her body that's not
good. Yeah, which is terrible because we don't like to see her body violated. We don't want to see this sweet girl changed. And then the movie really genuinely surprises the heck out of me here. Because Tom Noonan says, listen, you can't stop it, it's going to change, something like that. And, Mary Warnoff said something similar to that. And Tom Noonan says something similar to that when he says, go ahead and kill me, but you're part of something bigger, and some words to that effect. And so she, without a moment's hesitation, puts the gun to her head. I can't believe I'm spoiling this, but I warned everybody up front. She puts the gun to her head, and she blows her own brains out. Blam.
Well, theoretically, she shoots herself in the head.
It sure looks like. I mean, I could have sworn maybe I was just imagining, but I could have sworn that I even saw like an exit wound and everything.
Yeah, there's an exit wound, but we don't know.
Yeah.
The point is, I mean, if she, I don't know, maybe she did shoot her brains out, but for some reason her body survives. So now in the next scene we go to this hospital, and now she's lying there unconscious, presumably in a coma, and you're like, what?
Right.
Well, that happened.
Yeah. So we don't. Yeah. So obviously she survived in some capacity. She's either in a coma, vegetable forever, or she is one of those unfortunate souls who had caused themselves severe brain injury and may get back. Either way, we may or may not get a Rosemary's Baby, right? We don't know.
Well, maybe they're only keeping her alive enough to bring the baby to term. It's
hard to say.
Okay, now here's my question.
She might have even had it in the next day or so because it's this advanced, like that's happened in satanic movies. But and awesome, by the way, that the credits go on over that, and the credits still look super 80s and awesome.
Yeah. This is the abrupt ending, and we know that she's carrying something because the nurse goes, you'll get better, the both of you will, or whatever. It's the both of you.
So you'll be fine. Yeah, you'll be fine, or something like that. You're fine. The both of you, and she puts her hand on her belly, and then you're kind of like, I don't understand how she's pregnant. But yeah, I agree that they're probably. Well, so the question then is, do you really think that Jason thinks yes, that the nurse is a Satanist? But I don't think the nurse has to be a Satanist if it's a regular pregnancy, like a intrauterine pregnancy,
Right.
because then it would just be a question of, oh, we have a patient who's pregnant. But if it's a weird pregnancy, then the nurse would have to be a Satanist, and anybody else who looked at her would have to be a Satanist to know.
Oh, if she's not a Satanist, how did she get to the hospital?
Well,
no, I'm talking about the nurse.
I mean, they're out in the middle. I know, but I'm saying, like.
Well, also remember, she did call, even though it was false. Like, there's a couple things. She never shows back up at her place, even though her roommate is shiftless and ridiculous. She still, like, has, cares somewhat, it seems like.
Yeah.
She doesn't show up. She did not dial 911, even if she said, hey, never mind, it was an accident earlier.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of ways it could happen. And I think that's
Tom Noonan
could have
driven her. He's not dead.
I think that's the beauty of the film, actually, is that it does exactly what I think the best of horror movies does, or a lot of different movies, where like we all get to discuss, like, hey, do you think she's pregnant? Oh yeah, she's probably pregnant. Pardon me.
Yeah.
And so, and then we get to discuss also, well, do you think the nurse is a Satanist? I don't think she has to be. Like, if somebody brought her in and said, hey, there's this poor unfortunate woman, either they found her or, she's brought in, oh, she was pregnant and she was depressed and this happened. You could do all kinds. Or it could just be that there's a bunch of Satanists around that area and the nurse knows what's going on. It could go so many different ways. That's cool.
If Tom Noonan drove her, it's St. Lucifer's Hospital, and it's a hospital full of devil nurses.
It's the same hospital.
Which actually, Hospital of Devil Nurses would be a pretty good horror movie.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, but they would have to be like kinky latex nurses.
Oh no, I think that was made. There was a Paul Naschy movie.
It depends. If it was a modern movie, they probably would be like latex fetish nurses. If it was, again, something similar to this, then there would be, normal nurses.
Well, Tony, I'm thinking of movies like House of Psychotic Women, and,
sure,
and
exactly.
It seems like there's one that God, sometimes I can't believe the sentences that come out of my own mouth. But anyway, there have been several like Italian and Spanish, wackadoo hospital movies from the late 70s that would fit that bill, but. This ending is so abrupt that you're like, it really, like, the movie just screeches to a halt. I don't mean in a bad way exactly, but you're just like, whoa, all of a sudden, that payoff with the gun, and then we're in the hospital, and that's it.
And also, by the way, before that, remember, it's interesting, too, because even though perhaps she isn't as effective as she thought she was going to be, that we get a news prompt that says, wow, the eclipse ended faster than theoretically possible. Like what?
Right.
The guy's going, wow, how'd that happen? Because she did enact change. So there's a possibility the kid isn't Satan, just Satan incarnate, but you never know. And all that stuff is just leaving
it's wonderful.
Cool.
If this had come out in '83, it would have like cult fans who would really demand to see more of it.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I wanted to mention, throughout the film, there are so many callbacks to other movies. I was thinking about stuff like Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and there's like Shadows.
Psycho. At one point you heard talking about Psycho.
Oh my God, there's so much Psycho. There's so much music that sounds like the Psycho score. There's Shadows on the Wall. What's that? Go ahead.
The setup in the house is very Hitchcockian. I mean, the fact that how much danger she's in, but she is oblivious to it.
One of the callbacks to Psycho is there at the beginning when she overhears the argument, which reminded me so much of Janet Leigh overhearing Norman arguing with himself in the guise of his mother at the beginning of Psycho. There's a point where she's climbing up the stairs and she casts this shadow that reminds me so much of of the Mina character in Nosferatu. There are just one sort of wonderful little horror callback after another here. It's really amazing. Okay, so we should do final thoughts because we're up to the hour. Let's do final thoughts on House of the Devil, and then kicking off this season. Is this the second part of season 2, or is this the first part of season 3?
Hey, this is season 3.
This is season 3. So kicking off this season, it's the first time that we're going to do our endorsements for the season. So, okay. Drew, you were going to say something. I'm sorry. You were proving that it was season 3?
I'm done.
Okay. All right. Then we'll go in the same order that we started out in, which was Tony, Julia, Drew, and Jason. Final thoughts. And then we'll come back around again and do endorsements. Final thoughts: The House of the Devil. Should we or shouldn't we do The House of the Devil? And whatever else you want to say as a sum up. Tony.
Yeah, it is a really, really well made. It takes a lot, I think, to do a throwback correctly. And even though people love to point out all the things that they may or may not have gotten wrong, and want a comic book guy the pieces of it. It's a really faithful homage, and in fact, it's so much of an homage that it's almost like ceases to be an homage, and it just goes back into like, well, I made an 80s movie, I just happen to make it now.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it would be hard maybe to make, because people back then weren't thinking like, I'm going to make an 80s movie. You made
right.
the movie you were making at the time, right? And so it's weird, but it just does what it does so well, in my opinion, that looks, and that stuff is really hard, and it just nails it. It's kind of a slow burn. Like there's not a lot of, traditional. Some horror fans may want more, but I think the slow burn atmosphere really adds to. Maybe that's why it feels so abrupt. Is it's such a build up. But there's so many horror movies, especially from that era, that have a similar kind of pacing that it feels right there as well. So I would watch it. I haven't watched it a lot, but I definitely, every time I watch it, it's scary. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Julia, final thoughts on House of the Devil?
I think the moral of the story is don't go poking around the house when you're babysitting. No sense poking around the house. Don't babysit for anybody you don't know, and don't eat pizza.
Don't eat pizza.
All right. Bad for you.
Don't eat pizza is the new don't have sex in horror movies.
Exactly.
What was the movie where the sorority girls order a pizza and it's brought by the guy who's killed by the guy who has like a big power drill that he's killing people with? That's sorority. It's Driller Killer. Isn't
Driller
it?
Killer. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yet another possible reference. Of course, maybe that's a stretch, and I just wanted to talk about Driller Killer.
This may be the most reference-happy episode we've ever done, if that's possible.
All right, Drew. Final thoughts. House of the Devil.
Yes, watch House of the Devil, but you should not watch it alone.
Oh, okay, all right. And my final thoughts. Just this movie gives me faith that you could recreate almost anything. You could make a rock solid like Mario Bava 1970s movie today if you put your mind to it. You could do almost anything. So this movie is, if you're a horror fan of the 70s and 80s, you got to see this. You'll just have a smile on your face the whole time. I'm really thankful to our listener Elizabeth who said you got to watch this movie because that was totally right. So that's really fantastic. Let's go back and do our endorsements. And thank you everybody for your patience through the holidays. We're glad to be back. And next week we are starting something new. We are starting a new retrospective of musical horror. I was about to say comedies, but not necessarily comedies, but musical horror. We're going to start with stuff like Little Shop of Horrors and Phantom of the Paradise and some awesome things. Okay, Tony, I didn't cue this up with you, but do you have any endorsements for us?
I have a couple. Some are actually three. Some are horror and some are not.
All right.
As far as horror goes, I really think people should see this movie coming out, John Dies at the End. It's a little bit sci-fi, but it's mostly horror. It's hilarious and it's awesome. It's based on a book, but I have not read the book, unfortunately, nor the sequel. But I got to see it at a final screening of the South Lamar Draft House when they were closing that for remodeling, and it was really cool. Don Coscarelli, who you may know from Phantasm and Bubba Hotep, directed this, and he's also a really, really nice guy. And so I'm really hoping that it's out on video on demand. It'll be out in limited release in theaters soon. I really, really enjoyed that movie, John Dies at the End. It's just cool. If I say too much, it's hard to explain.
You already gave away the end.
Yeah, exactly. But when you see it, you'll understand. It's really great. Also, not horror, but everyone should see it. You don't have any excuse to not see it. The Judge Dredd movie. It is not a sequel to the terrible Stallone movie, which I still refuse to see. I've seen enough pieces of it to know that it's not what I want to watch. So everybody complains that they don't get hard R movies, and there's no hard R action movies. And then because I think marketing really screwed the pooch on this one, nobody went and saw this movie. And it's exactly the movie that action fans wanted and comics fans wanted, and nobody went. So we can fix this by getting the DVD and watching the movie and telling people, because it's pretty awesome. And my final thing, which I just, it was brought up earlier to me earlier today, and then I kind of dig it, is Harry Knowles of Ain't It Cool has his Picks and Peaks app on the iTunes store. And it's actually pretty neat because he does this column where he reviews things, and whether you like his reviews is neither here nor there. I tend to like his enthusiasm in the way he describes DVDs that he's going to watch. But this ties back into that, and it's cool, too, because it ties into Netflix. And then you can also rate movies and buy them and sync everything. And it's the Picks and Peaks, Picks and Peaks, P-E-E-K-S, from Ain't It Cool News. And I think it's cool. Like, and it'll give you push notifications like, hey, the new column is up. And so you can kind of like, oh, man, that movie's out on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever. So I dig it. Your mileage may vary, but since I installed it, I've been like, oh, cool. So I can see what's up with that. So I don't know. That's my endorsement.
All right. Julia, do you have any endorsements for us this week?
Jason and I have become obsessed with Homeland, which I'm sure everybody else listening to this is like, well, duh, it's awesome. But this is our we were Homeland virgins until 2 weeks ago, and we've now watched 17 episodes.
Something like that. That's great.
So it is awesome. Truly fantastic show. So watch it.
Very cool. Drew, do you have anything to endorse for us?
I have a few things.
All right.
First off, as I have been ill, when I first got sick, I went up to Half Price Books, which is a double endorsement because Half Price Books is awesome. And I went to their dollar bin just to stock up on anything that I would think would be mildly entertaining from their dollar bin on their DVDs. I got some cool things, some things not so cool. I got the both Alien vs. Predator, which is kind of meh. Both I got the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I actually kind of like, and the King Kong, Peter Jackson King Kong, which I also kind of like. But the two things that I kind of took a chance on, because I'm not actually, a lot of people think this is strange, I'm not actually a huge Hellboy fan. I like Mike Mignola's art, and I like his character design, but, so a lot of the times I feel that the stories are kind of lacking in places. I do like Hellboy. I don't want to sound like I hate it or anything, but I'm not as big of a fan as somebody with my interest, who sphere of interest, who is also interested in comics normally would be. But I picked up the 2 animated movies that they did around the time of the second movie, which is Blood and Iron and Sword of Storms, and those are excellent. Those are so much fun, and I highly recommend them if you have not seen. They've been out for a few years now, so I'm sure everybody else is like, duh, why are you recommending this now? But those are so much fun. The first one is kind of a mashup of Japanese folklore, so if you have an interest in folklore at all, you'll get a kick out of that. The second one is a vampire movie. So Jason, if you have not seen that, you should put that on there. But it is, again, I keep saying this, so much fun. So Blood and Iron.
I have not seen these animated Hellboys.
Well, you should. They're better than both of the live action movies.
Okay,
I have to say, and I like Guillermo del Toro a lot. I thought he did a good job on those, but like these both blow live action movies away. My second real recommendation is for Uncanny Avengers, which is a new Marvel series, which is kind of, it's gotten a lot of flack actually online. It's kind of a mashup of the X-Men and the Avengers. It's Rick Remender and John Cassidy are doing it. But the plot line, which I highly enjoy, is Nazis versus mutants. And I'm surprised Marvel, as a team of Nazi supervillains led by the Red Skull, are trying to annihilate mutant kind. And it's a simple setup, but it's been a lot of fun so far. And I won't reveal too many of the twists and turns, but if you do not like this, you do not like Marvel Comics. And that's the thing. I see a lot of criticism about this, like, oh, it's so pulpy and silly. It's like, you don't like Marvel Comics then. This is X-Men and Avengers in one book. How can you not like that? You don't like Marvel Comics. So, and the art is John Cassidy, so it's gorgeous. John Cassidy draws the best Captain America out of any modern-day artist, and I will fight anybody that disagrees.
I love Cassidy from Legendary. I mean, I think he's fantastic. So, no, Planetary, not Legendary. Sorry,
Planetary.
Go ahead.
Uncanny Avengers. Check it out if you are a Marvel Comics fan, and I know some of you out there are. My slightly self-serving, but not really self-serving endorsement. My wife's band, Danger Cakes, which has been talked about a lot on the show, their first CD is out on Deep Eddy Records. It's called Dessert First. And you should either go to CD Baby and order it or download it, or you can go to Deep Eddy Records and order it. It is also available on iTunes and Amazon now. But
that's Danger Cakes
everybody
Dessert
out there,
First, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Danger Cakes Dessert First.
I can attest that I haven't. What I've heard of the album is awesome. I need to get an album, but also CD Baby is really awesome for putting out. Like, we did our Desert to Mars release through them, and their checkout and all of that is really cool.
And it's affordable. I mean, even if you don't want to commit to an entire album, you can get a couple of songs and they're only 99 cents each. And I just want to get up on my high horse for a second. Jamie has told me, they were out on tour, and she's told me that she's had people come up to them and say, "Oh, we couldn't afford to buy your album, so we downloaded it illegally." That is a slap in the face. That is a slap. Like, I know you think that you're supporting them by coming to their show. That is a slap in the face.
Yeah,
in the artist. This is.
If you can afford money for coffee, which many people do, you can buy at least one MP3, if not the album.
Yes.
And
yes.
I mean, we released ours on and again, maybe I shouldn't preach, but however, our album we did not tell anybody it was out because we were waiting for the physical release. It was out a week, maybe 10 days, and people had it was shared everywhere. You couldn't even buy it.
Yeah.
And except, well, I guess you could buy it on iTunes and stuff, but we didn't even tell people. It wasn't even a thing where we told people that we had an album out. But when you tell somebody that that you've downloaded,
not every band is Metallica. Not every band is Green Day. Not every band is No Doubt. And
in the end, that's up to the artist, right? It's up to
exactly.
It's up to Metallica whether they want to give away their album. It's not up to me.
Yeah, well, the justification she's been getting from these people is that we don't have enough money to go out and buy a CD. Well, you had enough money to buy a ticket to a show.
Absolutely.
So,
well, yeah, and you probably have enough money to buy a pizza later.
Actually, here, however,
if you want to support independent bands, you should really support them by putting the money directly in their pocket.
I will have to say there's a couple things, and then maybe the Castle Dracula podcast isn't the forum for this, but two things. A lot of people think that the labels get all the money, but if you're an indie band and you put out on CD Baby, they get very little of the money, and we get most of the money. So you actually are giving. The other thing that people say is, well, I'm supporting them by going out on tour. And that is true, and that is how most people make most of their money. And I totally understand that. Again, this isn't, hey, we're Metallica and you're cutting into our millions. This is, it costs several $1,000s to make an album. So, and you are justified. Like, I would never, ever, people come to the show and are giving money to us. Again, the club gets most of that money, by the way.
It seems pretty darn brainless to walk up to somebody and say, "Hey,
She said people multiple times do this, and
I understand. And
that's faulty.
We have too, and also, hey, well, I'm going to buy a T-shirt, and that's cool too. Like, again, never begrudge any of that. We've given away enough albums too, just because you have to do some of that. But to tell a musician, hey, I don't have the money, I just downloaded your album. If you're going to do that, at least buy the album or an MP3 or a T-shirt or something at some point. Like, I've been broke a lot of times, and I'm not saying I've never downloaded an album, but when I do have the money, then it's time to do that. But I would never go up and tell somebody that I just got
seems awfully strange.
That's really...
Yeah, man, I really got up on my soapbox here, and I took everybody with me.
No, but it is very. That's just interesting. That's also interesting that there's clearly some communication, some PR work that needs to be done. Because if somebody feels comfortable walking up and doing that, it means that they're just too ignorant. They just simply don't know that there's something wrong with that. So there you go. I guess that's.
It's funny. It's funny. Like there's within like a week of the album being out, like all of a sudden they're cropping up on. Like the other thing is about this, like they're cropping up on all these Russian and German blogs, which is great.
Our first,
but I know a lot of I know a lot of like Danger Kicks isn't touring over there, and hope maybe one day they will. But they're touring in Arizona, they're touring in Louisiana, they're touring in Texas. That's.
So it is complicated. I want to wrap this up so that we no disrespect. I mean, it's a great conversation, but okay, really quick endorsements. Lips of Blood I saw on Netflix. It's a movie that I'm hoping that we'll get to do on the podcast sometime because it was just absolutely fantastic. It's a French movie on Netflix streaming, and it's about this artist that sees a photo of a castle, and he's convinced that it's a castle where he met a vampire when he was about 11 years old, and he goes back to see if she's still there. And it is wonderful, very cool, not safe for work, but definitely a fantastic early 70s French vampire movie, and with all that entails. And then Yakfest, that's the young adult Keller festival coming up this Saturday. I'm going to be there on panels, so if anybody has a chance to go, you should check it out. I've also become fascinated recently with Scopitone, which is we'll post links to everything that we talk about on our Facebook page. But I've become become fascinated recently with Scopitone, which was a format of videos that was being done in the early 60s. And, lots of artists around the world did these videos in Scopitone. There was no MTV, so your videos would go on a sort of a video jukebox that would be in a bar. And, these things don't exist anymore, but the videos do, and they are a sight to behold. So there's some really great Scopitone videos out there, and this has become sort of all the rage in France. At least in the last couple of years, they have a new show called Do You Do Scopitone, which is just all about rediscovering these really awesome music videos of the 60s. That's as obscure as I can possibly get. So that'll wrap it up. I am so excited to be back for this season 3. Next week we kick off the new musical horror retrospective, which I think will just blow everybody's mind. We got some other great stuff coming up after that. I know that we're getting back to Stephen King eventually, but what comes right after musical horror, I don't even remember right now, but it's all going to be neat.
Musical
so if
comedy?
you've ever wanted to hear,
horror comedy?
Is it horror comedy after musical horror?
Yeah, I
think
so.
we're just figuring it out.
Or maybe Stephen King, more Stephen King, I can't remember. Anyway, yeah.
Yes. So, but musical horror is next, and then some other stuff, and it's all going to be great. Okay. Thanks everybody. I hope you have a fantastic week. We will be back next Monday night, and those of you listening on iTunes, you'll get it on Tuesday morning, and I hope you leave us comments. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. Bye.
Hey, thanks
Bye,
everybody.
Good night.
And, also, sorry to get on our soapbox, and again, we do appreciate everybody listening to all of our tunes.
Yeah,
oh my God,
I appreciate your indulgence. I appreciate your indulgence about my rant about art.
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic, and people can leave comments on the Facebook page too. So, and iTunes. Okay, bye guys.
See ya.
Bye.